Hello, and welcome to the Lobby's Outlook. This is Daphne Cabrera
and Alix Cicchini, reporting for the Lobby Observer. Today, we will be covering news from international to local, starting internationally. Following the World Cup, Portuguese soccer phenomenon Cristiano Ronaldo is going to play for Al Nassr, a club in Saudi Arabia. Another soccer legend, Pelé, who was a player for Brazil, died on December 29th at age 82. Former Pope Benedict also passed away on December 31st at 95 years old. His public funeral was held at St. Peter's Basilica in the following days.
At least 40 were killed and 78 injured in Senegal as two buses collided. Unfortunately, because of the dangerous, unkept roads, incidents like this are fairly common. In Brazil, supporters of former President Jair Bolsonaro, an extreme conservative, revolted against the new liberal president Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva just a week after his inauguration. On Sunday, protesters quickly became rioters as they broke windows, security measures, and sections of the roof of the three governmental buildings.
The U.S., Mexico, and Canada are meeting Monday and Tuesday following the new border guidelines released by the U.S. on January 5th. The restrictions tighten up the border security, deporting many illegal immigrants, and only allowing 30,000 immigrants in a month, granting them 2 years in the U.S. as long as they pass the necessary checks. The restriction also make the path to citizenship more effective and hopes to eliminate illegal entry.
Journalist Barbara Walters, a national icon, passed away on December 30th at the age of 93. Walters interviewed everyone from pop cultural figures to world leaders in addition to starring on her show, The View. Walters is one of the first women on camera reporting and continues to be an inspiration for all journalists.
Targeting calls in both the Michigan vs. TCU games and the Ohio State vs. Georgia games in the Final Four college footballs were reviewed. The same weekend, Damar Hamlin collapsed on the field after a hit during the Bills-Bengals games on January 2nd. Hamlin appears to be progressing, but dangerous to athletes' health in sports is a rising issue due to the recent event.
On January 3rd, the Federal Drug Administration approved abortion pills, allowing the pills to be distributed in pharmacies or by mail if a doctor prescribes them. These pills are not allowed in states that block abortions.
As the second anniversary of the January 6th riot rolls around, rioters are still being held accountable. Nearly 1,000 people have been charged with federal crimes, with only 538 resolved cases over the new year.
Kevin McCarthy wins the Speaker of the House after 15 rounds of voting, the longest number of rounds since 1860, which took 44 rounds. The clear division in the Republican Party signals that the nomination by the Republican National Committee will also be controversial for 2024. Originally, the House Freedom Caucus said McCarthy wasn't conservative enough to combat liberal President Biden, but eventually, other Republicans were able to persuade them. Democrats were not happy McCarthy gave in to conservative extremists, with Representative Eric Swalwell saying, quote, "2 years ago, insurrectionists failed to take over the Capitol. Tonight, Kevin McCarthy let them take over the Republican Party," end quote.
A picture circulating from the vote is of Mike Rogers, an ally of McCarthy, restrained by others in the chamber in an attempt to confront Matt Gaetz, one of the small groups of Republicans who refused to vote for McCarthy for Speaker of the House. In other House news, new House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries became the first Black person to be a party leader in the entire chamber.
Chinese borders are reopened after being closed since the original COVID outbreak 3 years ago. Now, there is no requirement to quarantine upon arrival in the country, although a negative PCR test within 48 hours of travel is mandated.
Abby Weiner, a first-grade teacher at Rich Neck Elementary School in Virginia, was shot by one of her 6-year-old students. Weiner appears to be improving, but it's still unclear how or why the student obtained a gun. 28-year-old Brian Koberger was arrested for the Idaho killings, murdering 4 students at the University of Idaho.
This past week, romance novelist Susan Machine announced she actually did not commit suicide after 2 years of readers believing her to be dead. Machine faked her death 2 years ago in September 2020 by having her alleged daughter make the announcement via Facebook. At the end of her post this week, she closed with, quote, "Let the fun begin," end quote, a comment that angered many fans.
Dr. Anthony Fauci officially retired from his position as chief medical advisor to the president in the last few weeks of December. A familiar face to many, Fauci was one of the scientists who led the country through the pandemic.
Massachusetts has a new governor. Maura Healey, elected in November 2022, is the state's 73rd governor, the first female governor, and the first openly gay person to hold the office. Former Governor Charlie Baker will be the president of the NCAA.
In sports, the Patriots season ends as New England loses 23-35 against the Bills on Sunday, an expected win after the tragedy of Bills player Damar Hamlin. Exciting news for the Red Sox, though, as they sign Rafael Devers to an 11-year, $331 million contract to get him to stay with the Red Sox. This deal overrides the previous one made before to avoid arbitration. That deal was only for 1 year and $17.5 million. The 26-year-old third baseman secured the biggest contract in franchise history, giving the team hope for the seasons to come.
For other Boston sports, the Celtics improved to 28-12 on the season after a 121-116 win over the San Antonio Spurs. The Bruins are also having a standout season with a record of 31-4-4.
In Westboro on January 5th, a 12-year-old boy was walking in the crosswalk near the Rotary when he was hit by a golden sedan and proceeded to drive off. The boy is not seriously injured, according to officers, but the driver remains unknown.
Recently, there have been many robberies both in personal homes and businesses. Saatchi, True Salon, and Deluxe Nails and Spa, in addition to 2 homes, were broken into and potentially stolen from. Police have yet to identify the suspects.
In sports, boys hockey lost a tough game against Lexington 4-1 on Friday, with the only goal scored by Chris Pascal, making their record 2-6 overall. Also Friday, girls basketball won 57-45 over North Middlesex, continuing their great season with a 6-1 record. Boys basketball also won over North Middlesex 60-48 with an overall record of 3-4.
Both boys and girls swim head into their meet Tuesday versus Neshoba. The girls undefeated and the boys with only 1 loss. Boys and girls indoor track have a meet Wednesday at Wachusett. Gymnastics won their first meet versus Algonquin 128.4 to 127.95. Unfortunately, due to the weather, the ski team has yet to compete, but hopefully they will be able to soon.
That's all for this week. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Lobby O's Outlook. This is Alix Cicchini
and Daphne Cabrera reporting for the Lobby Observer from Studio 33 at Westboro TV.